Hey everyone, Aaron here. Welcome back to the Anime Talk, the show where sometimes you just gotta bear with it. Might be tough, but bear with it. Bottom line, just keep going. Today on the Anime Talk, if you haven't seen from the title already, I always say that, but it is true. Like, I mean, you can't really per se surprise people unless I don't put in the topic, the topic on the actual title of the video. But today we're gonna be talking about bearing with an anime you really don't per se care for. Now, if you're an anime reviewer like myself, and I take the reviewer quote very loosely, I'll say this right now. It's sometimes tough to review things that you really aren't particularly enjoying, and almost unfair to the show that you're reviewing or watching, because if you don't like a show and you go about reviewing it, no matter how unbiased you try to be towards it, it's always going to be there, that little kind of sneaking thing inside of you going, I hated the show for this, that, and the other reason. But is that fair when realistically you just hate the show because it's your own personal taste? Now, this anime talks to be like similar to my last several, which I noticed like have been tips and tricks videos, really for some reason. But I swear it's not on purpose. That just kind of happens. But I would say that this is kind of a tip and trick video in many ways too, on how to survive anime you just really particularly are not getting too invested in, and if you want to kind of keep watching them because you're one of those people that will not judge an anime until you've seen the whole thing, which is I commend people for doing that. It's something that's very hard to watch a series that you're not fully invested in, and it's even harder to then say I completed it and give it a score. I think the first thing is find out why you dislike that anime. So this is trick number one and tip number one. Find out why you don't like the particular anime you're watching. So if you're a reviewer and say you're watching something like New Game, which I'm not a huge fan of, I'll be honest with you, it's not my cup of tea, if that makes any sense. It's something that I don't dislike it. I'll say that right now, but it's not that I can really get too heavily invested into it. And I watched the first episode. Probably as of launch of this one, I probably watched more than one. But the thing is that it's funny because I just cannot really find myself that attracted to the characters, in the sense that I don't care what's going on screen too much, and it's just the comedy doesn't really work for me too much. The animation's not bad, but stuff like that. But I've identified why I dislike the show, if that makes sense. And I think that is step one, really. Like I said before, that is the first step you need to take in order to understand fully why you don't like a show. Because too often, a lot of people, and this is, I hate to say, this is some reviewers that are more, I guess, not as popular, and still kind of learning how to review stuff. And hopefully they do learn, because a lot of times if you don't really kind of pick up certain tricks and realize how to do certain things with reviewing, your style never changes. But, they watch a show and say they hate it. I dislike this. It was horrible. Why? You can tell me all day you don't like something, but you have to actually force feed me the reasoning too behind it. You can't say you dislike something for no reason, because I've had some people actually come to me and say, "Oh yeah, I hate that show," and I'm like, "Why? What did you hate about it?" "I just hate it. It's terrible. It's the worst show I've ever seen." "Why?" It's just the worst show I've ever seen." "Why?" That's the bottom. Like, actually give a response to why. Understand your own mind and understand your own heart why you dislike something. When you understand that, you will then be able to kind of pinpoint your biased nature toward the show, your jaded concepts, and your thoughts and your rationale behind why you don't like something, and how you're going to review it from there. Because there's plenty of shows I've reviewed and I dislike, but the thing is I give them a chance, don't get me wrong. And if I feel I really can't get into it, I'm going to save that little thing for the end of this video, but because that's another trick entirely. But if I feel like I can't review it too well, what I do is I realize, okay, I dislike this and that because it's just has this issue, or whatever issue. Something, for example, I can think of off the top of my head is Taboo Tattoo. I did not like Taboo Tattoo up to like the seventh episode, I think it was, with when the episode after the seventh one, so it was the eighth one, I actually felt really liked a lot. Until then, I was kind of on the edge of my seat with the show. I was like, I liked it at times, I hated it at other times, but overall, I just really wasn't getting too super invested into it, and I felt myself kind of waning toward disliking more than liking it. And I understood the why. And the thing was is that then when I was reviewing it, I was always telling people, I'm saying this because I don't like it, but I understand that this might be something that appeals to people. And thus, even though it was still biased in many ways, I kept it unbiased in my review. Now, trick number two to kind of reviewing an anime you really don't get invested in is think about maybe pushing it to the side for the time being. I know it kind of sounds like a cop out, but I would say really think about waiting maybe till you watch something else or see some other show and then kind of going back into it. Too often, people try to binge watch shows they don't like. That's a no-no. I'll say that right now. If you're a reviewer, don't binge watch a show you don't like because it will make you hate the show more and more as you go on. There are plenty of shows that I've watched that I've disliked and I've done the binge watching thing with it, and I regret it because I realized I'm not giving it a fair shot because I'm hating the show already. I'm going into it guns blazing and just forward charge without stopping, and the hate for it is just growing on top of it. It's like the concept of you rolling down a hill and just picking up dirt. As you go on, you're gonna get more and more dirt on you because you're rolling down a hill. It's just gradual. It's a snowball effect in many ways. And with hating something, it's also like that too because if you keep going forward and you hate it more and more and don't understand the full concepts of it and also just in general don't give yourself a break from it, it just makes you dislike it more and more, and it just keeps building. So I'd always say take a break. Maybe 1 or 2 episodes let go by. Maybe wait until maybe someone says that the show has gotten better. All these things will help you kind of advance with the show if you don't really like it. Now, the final tip and the final trick for this is stick with your guns. I know that sounds kind of weird, and maybe it doesn't. It's not something that you could fully understand without more, I want to say, explanation. So I will explain it right now. Too often, I see people constantly doing this, where you'll review something, and then you dislike it, and the thing is that people dislike you for disliking the show. Listen, it's happened to me. I didn't really. I'll say that there's been several shows. I'm not gonna name any particular ones, but there have been several shows that I've disliked in the past. And I got flack for it. People said, "Oh, how could you dislike this?" Or "Why'd you dislike it?" Or they disliked the video. They didn't even leave a reason behind for why they disliked the video, of course. But the thing is that, stick with what you dislike. If you dislike something, hey, listen, don't feel bad. There's plenty of things that I dislike, and I've seen a lot of anime, and I know some of them are popular. The thing is that too often people are afraid of the opinions of others, and their opinions will, conflict with theirs. And then they'll say, okay, maybe I'll just review this in a way that's kind of avoiding, me getting backlash. Don't be afraid of backlash. If you're a reviewer, stick with your guns. Be not afraid to go in there and go, I don't like this show. I think it has this issue, and this issue. Now, I'll warn you ahead of time, be prepared to defend yourself. And I'm not saying in the literal sense, by the way, like, oh, now I'm going to go into a battle. No, I mean, in the sense that people in the comments are going to probably write shit, and they're going to say horrible things or whatever. Be prepared for that. But more so, be prepared for the reasoning behind it. So you remember I said step one, I had more to add to that? The reason being is that if you understand what you don't like about the show, you can then convey that in thought and theory to someone else that's going to say, oh, wait, I like this show because of that reason and that reason, to say the stuff that you're saying you don't like it for. Be prepared to come at them and don't be afraid to say, listen, bottom line, I didn't think this was good. I didn't think this was good for this reason, whatever. Just stick with your guns. I know that sounds so stupid, but I think, one thing I have problems with reviewers, and this is kind of why I even made my channel in the first place, is I'm not afraid to tell people my opinion. I'm 26 years old. I've never been one to go, okay, I like this show because 30 people like it. No, I like a show based on my merit. If I like the show because I think it's a good show, hey, I'll join those 30 people and say, that show was great. And everyone else will be like, hey, yeah, that's great. But if I don't like a show, I don't care about those 30 people that like that show. I'll be like, hey, I didn't like the show, sorry. And I might have them against me, but guess what? I'll stand there because I know, first off, that you're not alone. Most likely there are other people that don't like the show with you and are probably staying quiet because they're afraid. But, even more so is that I'm not afraid to say, hey, this is a bad show. Because there's been plenty of anime I've seen over the course of my life that have been terrible shows where people say, oh, they're the greatest shows ever. And I'm like, why? Is it because you just have not broadened your horizon? Because, this is the best example I could think of, and something that it may resonate with a lot of you. How many of you think about this? This goes out to the people that say, some show is great and then realize later on it's not. How many of you started off mainstream anime? Think about that first off. Then think about later on, as you've either watched more anime or watched more stuff that's kind of out there, not just the mainstream stuff, but the more stuff that's not as well known. How then you've gone back and gone, oh wow, why did I like this show? This show was terrible. You know, that right there is the big thing. People forget that a lot of times you might like a show because you just don't have a wider perspective of other shows. There have been too often that people will love Attack on Titan, for example, and say, "Oh, it's got the best story and it's got the best characters and all this." And it's like, I've seen other stories that have done stuff that's not per se exactly the same, but have done better things of explaining things or better storylines or stuff like that. And you know, when they've seen more stuff and they've seen like 30 or 40 more anime, and they go back and go, "Wow, you're not kidding. This show was not that great if you think about it. It's got this issue with this story, and it's got." There you go, because you've broadened your horizon. You know, too often, like for example, this goes out to Android type anime out there. I've seen a lot of Western shows. I've read a lot of Western novels and stuff like that that talk about robots and androids and AI and stuff like that. Anime really goes by a very strict code. I notice with AI, like anime in general, they do something where it's almost very cliched in many ways, but it's understandable because there's really not a lot you can do with androids. I mean, the concept's already been there, and there's only so much you can push into that to make more sense and make story work in a way that's not as cliche. But too often, it's going to be cliche. It's just going to be how you present that story that's going to make it good or bad. Now, I've seen a lot of Western shows and less Western movies that have done stuff with androids, and they've done it better than anime. But people that don't watch any Western material or so heavily invested in anime forget that there's other mediums that show androids and robots and AI and stuff like that, and think, "Oh man, this is the best show ever." When have you ever seen this movie or have you seen that movie? That did a lot better job explaining the android concept and doing exactly what this anime is doing right now, but before it. It just broadened horizons. So, a kind of side tip I want to say for reviewers. This goes out to reviewers and also just people in general who are very opinionated with anime and stuff like that. Broaden your horizon. I'm not going to put this as a trick number 4, but, well, I guess in many ways it kind of is. So, you could take it as a trick number 4 or kind of side trick. A side tip, whatever you want to put it as. Broaden your horizons, folks. There are plenty of books out there. There are plenty of movies and stories in general that have been done. And I'll tell you right now, if you are a particular fan of like maybe an anime that you love so much, and you're like, "Oh, I love this story. This got such a great story. I feel like it's never been done before." Go on Google, okay, and type in that same anime, okay, and then type in like recommendations or stuff that's like that in mediums like books or movies from the West, whatever. I guarantee you will find something that's been done before, and I want you to go maybe watch that or read that if you want to, because the thing is that if you do that, you'll understand something where you'll go, "Whoa, okay, that was done like 10 years before or 7 years before, whatever," and you realize, "Oh, wow, this is not that great now that I think about it. It's been done before." Okay, you know, just broaden your horizons, folks. Do not go to every single show you watch and think it's like the beginning of and end of every anime ever made. It's the best thing in the world. Broaden your horizons. I'll say that right now. Reviewers especially, you need to go out there and know what the hell you're reviewing. And I mean in the genre. If you're going to review an action show, okay, fine. You can review that action show all day long. But know that there's a million action shows out there. So make sure you're not just watching one show and saying it's the best thing ever made, because it might not be. You might like it now, but then you watch 30 more action shows and go, "Wow, this show sucks," compared to all those other shows I just watched. That's what happens. That's why I will always say, make sure that if you're an anime reviewer in general, just broaden your horizons. Bottom line. And the thing is that this kind of why I don't want to put this as trick number 4 is that, broadening your horizons in general will kind of go against everything else I said too, in the sense that every single thing I've said before, 1, 2, 3, can actually be, I want to say, rectified in many ways by just having more of a deeper aspect of knowledge in terms of different mediums and stuff like that, because you won't have to worry so much about bias in your reviews when you know 30 different shows that came out for something that you're disliking right now. You will then be more unbiased towards it, if that makes sense. You will not have an issue sticking to your guns, for example, because you will know that, hey, this show was not as good as that show because this show came out before it and was done with stronger audience and stronger whatever in general. You will realize that they all kind of interlock with one another. But anyways, guys and girls, that's it for my anime talk. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, please share the video, like the video, comment the video, the whole nine. I will talk to you all later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.